Hi guys, in this video we're going to make a quick cake of a little Westie dog. And I'm starting with a 14-inch cake drum and I'm just putting a little bit of buttercream on, closer to the back than the front, ready for adding my cakes. Now I'm using 6-inch cakes. I've actually got two 6-inch cakes, but I'd cut them into layers of 2 and I actually used 3 of the layers. And apologies, I have got red food colouring all over my hands that I'm struggling to get off. So we've built up our cakes. I'm going to trim off, can you see the back kind of corner? So it rounds them off. And then as I come towards the front, I'm going to cut a little bit deeper, cutting more off. And it's kind of angled downwards as I'm bringing it towards the front. This is the bum of our dog. So we're keeping it very simple shape-wise because we don't want to be spending a long time on this one. Now I've got a smaller 5-inch cake that's going to sit on the front. And I'm just going to use a couple of my offcuts to just kind of put just in front of that cake we've added to the board, just so it fills a gap. And then my other cake, can you see, is just going to sit on the front. I'm going to have to cut little bits off to make it sit nicely. I'll cut a bit off the bottom, which will be the underside of the face. And can you see we're cutting off an angle so it just sits nicely. So that angle will be against the cake board. I've put a bit of white chocolate ganache just at the back of the head to hold it in place. And then we're going to cut like off kind of the front corner edge. And just a little bit off the bottom. Can you see cutting straight downwards off that bottom bit? Let's cut a little bit more out here. So I'm kind of just going backwards, cutting out a little wedge. So this will be above our nose. I haven't cut it perfectly even. So you can spend a little bit longer on it if you like. Or we can tidy it up when we put our fondant on. And I've just cut a little bit off either side of the head. Where the ears are going to go, it's kind of a straight slope either side. Okay. Then we're going to cover the whole thing in chocolate ganache. So I'm using a white chocolate ganache for this one. You can use buttercream if you prefer. And if you want, you can put sugar syrup on now. I'd forgotten about doing this, but we'll just add a little bit to the head. Then let's carry on covering it in our white chocolate ganache. So we get this kind of basic shape. Now, if I was doing a short head dog, I would make sure the ganache was much smoother. But on this one, it's okay being a little bit rough because of all the hair that's going to be drawn into it. And we're going to use the Renshaw's Extra fondant to cover it. So I've got 1 kilogram of it, and this should be enough to cover our cake and also make his little feet and ears out of. So I've just rolled it big enough to cover the whole piece, and we're just pressing it on just gently. We're making sure you push carefully around the bottom edge because we want to tuck it in tight to the underneath edge all the way around. So I'm just pushing my fingers in on my thumbs, just slightly rubbing where the eyes are going to go. And I'm just pressing down a little bit, kind of in the middle of the forehead, just to give it a little bit of extra shape. And then we're going to cut off all this extra bit. Now we're going to put in lines where we want sort of the front of its thighs to go. So I'm just going to mark them in and then just press a little bit firmer with my fingers. So it should look a bit like that. So once we've got that basic shape, we can start drawing in our little fur lines. So let's put it on like the legs at the back, the top bit of the legs. And then I've realised as I was doing it that I wanted to change the direction of the fur. So I'm just going to have to go over that. So we've got a few pieces of hair going in different directions, but that's fine. I think it looks okay still. So this is the time-consuming bit, but you don't really want to spend ages putting the hairlines in because the fondant will start to dry and it'll crack a little bit when you start putting them in. So don't waste a lot of time trying to get every piece of fur even. You want to just get those on there while the fondant's still soft. So I've covered my body now in hairlines and we're going to do the same on the head. So we'll start at the back of the head, then let's move to just above the nose. You can see where I've pressed a little bit too hard, it just goes through to the chocolate ganache below. So you want enough pressure that we start to see these lines, but not so much that it goes through to the cake. Okay, so we're going to bring it out from the sides of the head. The longer the lines, the longer the fur is going to look as well. We'll bring some lines out on the nose, and then just sort of below where the nose area is, or the muzzle, we're going to try and keep the hairlines just a little bit shorter, and especially on this chin bit, we'll keep them nice and short. And then I'm just going to use a balling tool to push an eye socket in for each eye. So I'm going to keep them quite small, quite plain little eyes on this one. I've got a large ball for the nose, which we're just going to make slightly more triangular shaped, and we're going to push that onto the front of the face. Now, if it doesn't stick, you can put a little bit of water under to hold it in place. Mine feels like it's sticking okay on its own. And 2 balls of black for the eyes. You can use modelling paste or fondant for this, either's fine. And I've just put a tiny, tiny little line of black just under sort of that mouth bit there, or under the top section of the mouth, so you only see it a tiny bit. Let's put some highlights in the eyes. So we're just going to roll 2 small balls of white and I'm going to press them in the eye and flatten them slightly. Ooh, we'll move that one across a little bit. Try and get them in the same place in each eye. You can add a second dot, this time going a little bit smaller. Then we're going to make a little bit of a blanket that's going to sit around it. Now I'm just going to do it in sections, and I've rolled thin some purple fondant and then also some white. Go as thin as you can without it sort of tearing. So we're going to cut out some bone shapes, and I'm just going to stick these randomly on my piece of purple. So we're just doing it in small pieces, and we're going to push it on the board, and we want it to kind of crease up because we want it to look fabricy. Yeah. So I'm going to carry on doing this in pieces until the whole board is covered. If it doesn't stick, just put a small amount of water on your board. Then we're going to create our front paws with like some big teardrop shapes. So I'm just going to nudge these in as tight as I can next to the face. So the pointy bit kind of is at the top, the more rounded bit is at the bottom. So it's just kind of poking out a little bit further than the nose. And let's just cover that in some fur lines. Ooh, let's put some little lines in so they look a bit more like paws actually. So 2 deeper lines sort of separating the toes. Go over with some smaller little lines for the fur. Okay. And we're going to do a similar thing in the back. It's less teardrop shape, more a ball that we're pressing on. And just exactly the same thing where we've pushed in the toes, and then we're going to draw in lots of little lines. So can you see it just sits in front of its sort of hip thigh area. And then we've got a little cone shape for the tail, and I'm just going to cover that in, again, lines. So you see it's very repetitive, this one, but it's actually quite quick and easy to do. Let's make this one a little neckerchief. Again, you don't have to, you could give it a collar instead. I'm going for blue, so I've rolled out some blue, reasonably thin, but then I'm rolling out the white much thinner. We're cutting strips, and we're just going to line these up on the blue. So let's put them at a bit of a diagonal, I think. And then we're going to do them the other way. So we're getting a bit of a checkered pattern. Once they're all on, I'm just going to roll over it lightly with my rolling pin so they don't stick out too much. Okay, so it's just flattened slightly. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to cut a little triangle. It doesn't need to be that big, but if you cut it bigger than is needed, that's fine because it's easy enough to trim it back down. And it's just going to sit, I think, at the back of the dog's neck. So let's give that little push on in place. Then we're going to do some ears. So I want 2 triangles. So I'm going to keep one side of it quite straight upwards, and then the kind of inside edge, I've cut more of a slant. Then I've realized my head is at a tilt at either side, so we've cut another line at an angle, and that's going to fit on our tilt. So this will fit on the head. Let's put lines on both of those ears and do it front and back of each ear. And just with a bit of edible pink dust, we're going to put some pink in the middle of the front of each ear. And what I'll do is put links in the box below the video to everything that we've used. So I've put a little bit of water underneath the ear, and I'm going to press it firmly onto the head. So because it's quite far over to one side, and we'll do the same with the other one on the other side. Now, if your ears are quite small, they should just stick. It's as they start getting really big that you'll probably find they don't want to stay on quite as well. But these are quite small, so they should just balance on there, okay? Okay, so there it is, all finished. I think this one, not including baking, took me about 2.5 hours altogether to decorate. Why not give this one a go? I hope you enjoy the video. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment below. You can see more of my tutorials by clicking on the images on screen now. If you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button to stay up to date with my future tutorials. There are also links in the description box below where you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and more.